Welcome, Auvorians, to the Saturday, 17th of October forecast for Trade Week call. My name is Steve Vetterl, often referred to as Dude, on the mic, looking to go for a weekend of risk management, and congratulations to the whole team. Today's launch. So be patient as we launch. We got a whole bunch of things, as you guys probably have heard. There's been just absolute and inordinate amount of webinars and Zoom calls, and it's all good stuff. And everybody has really stepped up to the plate. I'll tell you, I've worked for some world-class financial organizations that have collaboration that can't hold a candle to some of the collaboration that I've seen at this organization over the last month of our phase 2 launch. So hats off to everybody for the outstanding work done. So let's double check on sound if we could, please. Somebody wants to post something in the Q&A or chat window. Both are open. The chat is for messages to the group and or Q&A window open for any questions that we can offer. So, to the risk disclosure. Always our favorite part, right? Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk and can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange markets using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. And most importantly, can you afford to lose the money that you want to go live with? Second page. If you're sharing any of the results, especially with all the new softwares coming out, please do not use the term company recommended settings, because they really aren't. They're either coming from myself or developers. And honestly, I know there's a lot of new subscribers, so welcome to the team. You guys are about to have some life-changing stuff, and hopefully I can bring life-changing risk management to the table as well. But we don't really have any recommended settings. We're not a financial advisory firm. We don't have access to your brokerage accounts. We're not a broker. We just sell and license what's called SaaS, software as a service type of organization. We have excellent education and onboarding that's going to be released. Daisy Duncan, Susan, all the team that's worked really hard, and their educational content is going to be much appreciated, especially by myself, because it does take time to go through and build this library. So a lot of the software will come with default settings upon initial setup, which users have the ability to customize their settings if they want. Obviously, we're going to have weekly calls with most, if not all, the developers, if I'm not mistaken. And so just keep aware of the company recommended stuff. I know a lot of people the other day is like, hey, Steve, you finally got all your cameras. So I had all these cameras, these webcams, and they were all junk, right? You ever seen, like, in television the last 6 months we've been in this pandemic, you know, even like some of the best people on television, you're like, dude, your camera stinks. So I had all these rotten cameras, and I basically got new ones. I got tripods, like all kinds of stuff now. I feel like a YouTuber here, but we're developing the studio even more. In the process of getting a whole bunch of new screens and a new Corsair super trading system as well. So I'll go into more of that as I get everything set up here with all this fun stuff. But there's the ugly face of me. There's where the action happens. So let's go on to, let's switch over actually to Forex Factory and get past the get into the deep stuff. So if anybody's got any questions, Q&A window is open. I would ask you use the Q&A window, please, not chat. That way I can delete them. Process of elimination, right? So let's switch over the screen share to Forex calendar. All right, so for next week, and this is Sunday, October 18th to the 24th. Yes, the month is flying by, unfortunately. On Monday, Chairman Powell is speaking. Now, typically, these panel discussions that are the notes essentially are usually released ahead of time. But, you know, as the head of the central bank, Jerome Powell's role, essentially as Fed governor, head guy, head honcho, pretty much as far as the whole planet's concerned. This could always be a crazy event. Remember, this particular time is 5 a.m. So Monday morning, early, and you're looking right now um, at a time zone. Looks like it's half an hour off, huh? Look at that. Interesting. So we are Pacific time. Looks like we got it synchronized now. That's actually quite odd. Never seen that before. So let me get back and just adjust this to make sure we're on the right week. All right, here we go. So red folder events are what's important. And I have it running on all currencies now, but I just get rid of the non or low impact type of news stories. Just click apply filter. Comes out with your little condensed list that's sort of like the hot list, right? So anytime you're seeing anything that's related to Fed chair, obviously it's high volatility. If you are accepting trades, long or short, from any types of software, you just want to be aware of what's going on. I typically, when any type of like a PMI or an unemployment numbers or anything that has to do with GDP releases in any country for that matter, or the particular country's Fed and or central bankings are speaking, especially anything that Christine Lagarde says, anything comes out of the Bank of England. Obviously we still have these Brexit. It's been just a little bit too quiet in the Brexit area, in my opinion. I could just see a bomb dropping somehow in Brexit news coming up. So that's why I've been on ultra conservative and conservative settings with many of my accounts for the vast majority of the last 4 or 5 months. As many of you guys have seen with a lot of these Einstein and Alexander accounts, of which I'm not running, I'm all Einstein in what I show, because I have way too much stuff going on during the day to be accepting a bazillion trades. But I'm going to start doing that for Variable and a couple of the other pieces of software. So I'm going to set up a Neo, Variable, Stratamus, Gearbox. I'm basically going to have all 5 of them running. And there's a lot of trades that I guess I'll be accepting with all that. And it's going to allow us to see what the most important concept that we're going to all really want to take a serious note of, and that is the new concept of diversification. So as many of you heard me on the mic, just, in my usual droning on about financial planning, what I've talked a lot about is diversification. And I can tell you, I continue to see just in my everyday practice, like especially with the brand new client I just met with yesterday, fairly high net worth group. This guy's got over $2 million in one stock, and it's Apple, and it's killed it for him, right? But the diversification is not there; it's non-existent with this particular client's equity portions of the portfolio. So, as my role as risk manager in almost everything I do, I think my kids are probably sick of me preaching risk management, right? But it's important, that way you can just reduce risk and reduce this volatility. You don't have to spend as much time, and reducing risk can have dramatic impact on one's health. Very importantly, just from a stress standpoint. So I think it's a very worthy concept to spend a chunk of my life on. But at the same time, with the Forex calendar, I'm running next week. Developers are running. Obviously, there's going to be an absolute torrent of stuff being released, and a lot of people's heads will be spinning around. But let your hearts not be troubled. We will get it right. We will have the setups all good. I will be able to continue to captain the ship because I've gotten a lot of questions on that. But I do have everybody just grant me a little bit of room to get ramped up with the software. So as far as like super technical questions on the software, I've got to default to the developers in the beginning because I'm going to be learning too. So, but just looking back as far as the marketplace and in a macro perspective, as far as news. So on Monday, pal speak. Tuesday, nothing going on. Okay. Free to take trades all day unless something breaks and it's just bananas crazy related to Brexit or some other problem that pops up. Okay. Now on Thursday, the Bank of England Bailey speaks, real smart group of folks that are running the Bank of England. I don't know if they're going to make any Brexit comments. I don't know if it's a Q&A session. I wasn't really able to gain any color because typically the Waterline Summit, which this year is via satellite, there can certainly be some questions that can catch some of the Andrew Bailey off, and he's a really smart guy, but um, I would just take note of that. Doesn't mean I would stop trading that day. But around this period of time, whenever your time zone changes around the world, I would just make adjustments and understand that, literally there's something big coming out almost every day with the exception of Tuesday. For those trading on Friday, and I know many of you that are experts do a lot of manual trading, you will trade through the entire week. So a lot of what I talk about as far as just heads up on particular news events coming out, do understand we are still in a pandemic. Anything could pop up. And unfortunately, in the European zone, their rates of infections have spiked a lot. And, that could certainly pose more potential lockdowns, which personally I think is a really bad idea because there's a lot of businesses just absolutely getting crushed. And, my heart goes out to all those folks. I've seen some really sob stories, man, of just families getting wrecked because their whole restaurant chain went down. So, but we will stay off my personal opinions and get back to the macro discussion. So that's the week essentially in news. Let's take a look at the charts. Don't pay attention to the biotech index you see here. Let's start off with, all right, S&P, just a quick chat. Okay, still back up towards the highs. We've lightened up in equities and client accounts. Let's go to the dollar. Still stuck in this bottom range, which we're now coming up on 1, 2, almost 3 full months we've been inside this range. It is getting exceptionally long in the tooth, okay? So when I say long in the tooth from a risk management standpoint, we've spent enough time basing, in my opinion, and just looking at the basing that's been going on here, we could certainly continue for the next period of time inside this range that we're in. But I'm looking for a breakout, one way or the other. This is the daily chart. These are candlesticks. If you're not familiar with what technical analysis is, don't be too concerned about it. It's just an understanding of support and resistance over a period of time by anything that you put on a chart. This particular case, the dollar, which is where I always start with. So for a lot of our newer subscribers, you want to get used to this. If you like this charting system, as this is one of the fastest growing companies in charting on this planet because of their APIs, because the whole mess of other stuff, and I have nothing to do with TradingView, but this pro system version that you're looking at, it's only $15 a month. And you get like Bloomberg functionality for like a 20th of the price. It's crazy cool. Anyway, so just looking at the charts, it's kind of what I see going on DXY. I'm looking for a breakout. I can't tell if it's going to break up or down. We peaked our head above it right here, came right back into the base. Essentially, we sold off. Now, arguably, I could put another line here, right? Because this is another resistance point that was a major bounce. I don't know how much that would be thing, but essentially I'm looking for the dollar eventually to drop lower. So if you switch over to a weekly chart, I think this whole 89 to 86 area, especially if you drop all the way down a monthly chart, which I should have starred, you can see where this whole area, I think, could certainly be a magnet for the dollar. So if this does happen, right, get another stimulus package, further put our country into debt, which is typically a devaluing thing for any country's underlying currency. The other currency pairs that are tied to this, in most cases, maybe with less exception to the yen, they will spike. Unless any Brexit news breaks, you can see here is a daily chart for GBP USD. So this is traded. I'm going to be adding in some other currencies just to go through them real quick and see where the danger or risk is. We're still sort of stuck in the bouncing off of a very important support point off a couple of dojis formed. And then we're having really nothing to speak of other than, you keep in mind that even though we've been basing for this long, there is a major election coming up in the United States. The whole planet, I would imagine, will be watching this election because it's going to meet a ton for monetary policy. It's going to meet a bunch for all kinds of different things, including any type of quantitative easing related to economies and recoveries and all that fun stuff. So, a lot of this environment is fairly fraught with risk. But for right now, we've seen a cooling out, if you will, or a base pattern of where we're in a tight range, essentially bouncing between levels in almost all currencies. So here's the US dollar JPY. So we have a descending trend that's going on down. You can see that the currency is moving down in value relative to the yen. Obviously, that is in direct correlation to the decline of the dollar. The Euro JPY, our least favorite currency. Note that over the last couple of days down near, which arguably is a short-term support point from a rather sloppy cup of handle break on this daily chart, we've had two dojis print. Okay. Now, personally, from a risk standpoint, I think we should be okay, provided nothing comes out of any central banker's mouth the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think we should be okay up to the November 3rd election here in the US. So after that, all bets of everything I've talked about are completely off the table. I'm going to have to look at it from a fresh perspective coming in, because there could be some changes to monetary policy depending on what goes on with the election. So stay tuned on that. So, sort of like the underlying or overview of everything here is I wouldn't have a problem accepting any trades this week from any of the softwares if you are in an acceptance mode, because anything other than around the times that you guys see here probably wouldn't be accept. Just convert this to your local time zone and probably wouldn't be accepting trades. And a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't you just run through the whole thing? The problem is this is all statistics and trading, right? So it's the same thing with these trading systems. Many of the ones that we're going to be offering what's called a martingale system, which just takes larger and larger trades as the rubber band gets much more stretched away from a movement. Great example of this is if you go back on the Euro US dollar and you just look to these crazy moves that took place during the pandemic, right? This is not, in my opinion, the time to have a martingale trading system running, right? So this caused a lot of issues in many Forex trading accounts, even with some of the greatest pieces of software. It's just unpredictable volatility and statistically has lower win rates. I don't care how good a trader you are, volatility is higher, okay? This area is a much more predictable area to make money in. This is where a martingale system can shine. Maybe not as much in this trend lift off of this, right? This caused some havoc in many manual trading accounts for a lot of my buddies who were trading Forex because they were just trying to fight the trend and they didn't see the clear break that we had on a cup of handle pattern and the lift of the euro because of the big drop in the euro or in the DXY dollar. So hopefully you guys are understanding this a little better from a risk standpoint. All right, so here's gold. Not much going on in gold. Oil, it's probably headed to $30 a barrel. Again, these aren't as important of factors. And here we go. These aren't as important of factors now. They could be a correlating event at some point down the road, but for now, not seeing that. All right. So how's just a little note here, guys. How's my sound now? How's the sound? So you guys have actually heard me okay. Looks like we've had 1, 2, 3 people that the sound was a problem for. All right. Looks like it's probably just you guys, Nicholas, directly. If you're having sound issues, restart the Zoom. It looks like. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I don't have to record the whole thing. Sometimes when I'm on a roll, you guys know my diatribes I run on. I had to go back and repeat the whole damn thing. I probably wouldn't get it as straight. So let's go into some questions here. Yeah, Marta, there is options to do a bananas amount of technical analysis on these charts. I just choose not to do that because you want to keep it simple, right? If anything, everybody's always, I always would joke and in these, a lot of the interviews, like I just did a big podcast with Casey Stubbs. I traded to win. You guys will see the production when it's finished, but I always get asked the questions, what is one of your weaknesses? And most of my weaknesses is that I have a tendency to just dive right into just really deep stuff, right? And just lose a lot of people. So on these charts, I try to keep it really simple with just a moving average line. 200 is more of a longer term type thing. I choose to put it in green, volumes at the bottom. Each day is a single candle. The green, or whatever you want to color that. I don't even know what that color is, but essentially those are up days and the red are down. Steve, please touch on Euro AUD. Now, I do not have those loaded up yet. I'm going to do keep in mind, I've been talking with Dasan most of the week. Actually, really impressed with this guy. It really takes a lot to impress me, and most of the whole entire organization at this company from a leadership standpoint has really impressed me, which is rare. But I'll tell you, I'm very impressed by Dasan. You guys don't know, this guy has a robotics and engineering degree from Worcester Polytech. I mean, that is like a big time degree. I mean, that's like MIT caliber stuff. And he walked away from probably a fantastic career in robotics to write software and trade. It's crazy. Love it though. Just love the guts, of somebody to do that. But he's got other versions of different types of EAs that are coming out, working on continuing to better the environment. But I'll tell you, from the standpoint of a release, version 1, which essentially we're releasing, as you guys have seen with some of the different MyFX books, here's a couple at the top, by the way, while we're looking. For those of you that this is new to, this is very rare in trading land that there are organizations like a MyFX book or an FX Blue that have actually developed complete third-party auditing sites that will allow a bot to view inside your brokerage account, demo or live, to be able to see the trades that are executed, but only from the standpoint of a peek through the window. It's almost like looking through the window at a trading bot, confirming everything that's happening. There's a lot of people like, well, can they have access to your account? And nobody can have access to your brokerage account. I was actually explaining this to a client last week. And nobody can have access to your brokerage account in Forex land, regardless of what broker you have, except for you. Nobody can take money in or out of these accounts except for you or whoever you grant access to, okay? Whatever the transfer system that is. So I have a video that I have not finished shooting. Don't hate me, Susan. I'm trying to get it done. That's going to go in detail, about 5 minutes, into how to choose a Forex broker. There's a lot of really good Forex brokers out there, but they're sort of like hiding in the weeds in front of an overwhelming majority of them that are crap, in my opinion, because they debook you, which is essentially just gaming against your accounts or doing all kinds of things in there to mess with your trades. So, and by the way, this is the only, it seems like the last frontier to me. This is the only type of exchange that I've seen that still allows stuff like that. I mean, this doesn't even exist in developed markets for stocks. They're mostly executed on Eurex or, an NYSE or a NASDAQ. Those guys own a bunch of other companies and exchanges. Same thing with the CME. Everything is completely transparent as far as an execution of a trade. So from a risk management standpoint, running a hedge fund, right, you're more apt to want to trade in those markets than Forex. And I'll tell you, and maybe you'd have to just get all 14 banks that, provide the liquidity of this on board, but somebody stands to make a couple $1 billion if they can organize a centralized exchange for the execution of all currency transactions, instead of being it fragmented just based on the liquidity provider that you use, which is run by 14 of the largest banks in the world, right? So it almost seems like a monopoly. You just can't get in on. And it's something that's always totally pissed me off about this industry, that it does not have that kind of transparency like executing a futures trade on the CME would, or executing a stock trade on NASDAQ, which is completely transparent as far as market makers. It's actually a federal offense in most countries to have any kind of gaming against in stock manipulation or futures or other markets that trade the commodities or globally. So now that I've completely bored you guys on how execution works, I think it's from just at least a high level overview. It's important to understand how it works at the very core. You don't have to dissect it like I've done, but it helps understand, or gaining confidence, if you will, that if we're developing, or I should say our developers are developing EAs or algos that we're bringing to the marketplace to have the ability to execute and do exceptionally well in a game or rigged environment in some cases, right? But there's about 6 or 7 Forex brokers that I cannot disclose that I'm aware of that are actually very good. They use either an A-book or a hybrid type of model. And with the vast majority of this list, with relative certainty, I promise you there are people in your up and down line that know this story very well. Hunt them down because we cannot recommend that. We don't want to give our regulators that are hunting for anything wrong, right? As a lot of regulators are here in the European Union, for anything to allow them to build a resume, right? But I can tell you these brokers do exist out there. I'm going to show you in the video how to go into the MT4 platform. Just right click on a currency and just open up the ability to view what's going on with what's called the stop levels. So I don't have it booted up right now, but it's not that difficult. You just right click on the currency. You can go in and see if your Forex broker is gaming against you. Ideally, you want to see like a 0 or 1 in that column. So question 1, for those of us who will not be subscribing to all the EAs, will you be recommending which software setting is optimal for the coming week? All right. So what you're going to get from me going forward there, Forecast, by the way, I like your name. What you're going to get from me is essentially just an overview of what's going on. I'm not going to be stepping in and saying, oh, well, trade this software this week and then turn this bot off and turn that on. I'm not that smart, guys. I just can't see how I'd be able to bring any real value to the table telling you to switch one off and the other on. But I do, and I get it. One of the great things about this company, and which is very rare for our type of organization as an affiliate group, it is very rare for us to have a significantly high percentage of just subscribers, right? Most organizations, they force you to buy stuff and pack it up in your garage and all this crap that's involved in this arena. But all you have to do is go out and get 2 or 3 people under you, and your stuff's free, and then you get more licenses. So it's that simple. So it shows, just like Josh wrote in, get 3, find 3, help 3, teach 3. And then you get all your licenses for free. But ideally, I would have 2 to 3 licenses, guys. I really would. Find enough people, they're all free. It's the best way to go, because there's going to be weeks where variable does great or it's flat, right? That maybe Neo does well. Or maybe there's 3 weeks where Neo and Gearbox and Stratamus all don't do well, and variable does well. Right. So I think you're giving yourself a much more significant, and look, I get it. It's more expensive. I understand. But just from a diversification standpoint, if I could not afford it personally, I'd just go find 3 people. All right. So let's go through that. Starting to sound like a marketing guy, right? Will you send us suggested settings for the new EAs this weekend? So all of the developers, and honestly, this really is the best way, guys, because they develop the software. They know it works during settings. And with the exception of the Einstein guys, Bill and Riley, I'm not sure if they're going to be running any weekly calls. But the other software developers, the other 4 have, actually coming up on 5, right, have decided to run a weekly some So you're going to see me a lot make reference to here and there what was touched upon in the previous week's call. So I'll always want to make sure I watch that, or if I'm on the road, whatever. I actually get a brand new Samsung S20. This thing's a beast. So I'll be able to watch all kinds of videos on the road, and do all kinds of stuff as far as catching up. But I'll, if something seems out of whack, from risk management standpoint, I'll step in. The great thing about all these software is that even during just ridiculously crazy movements in the market, the drawdowns have been low. And that's really everything, guys. I mean, that is the bottom line. Low drawdowns. If I teach you nothing else, and you've forgotten everything else, this particular thing here is what's most important. If this is in anywhere from the low teens to high teens, that's outstanding. In any period of time, you can see that, there's going to be drawdowns. No software is perfect. If it was, these guys could charge thousands of dollars a month in subscription prices, and there is hedge funds that would pay it. But the cool thing about all this is it's a fully verified track record. If you're not familiar with MyFX Book, I would completely get involved with it. You can download this up. There's an app for your phone, by the way, just like the MT4 platform. I know that we're working really hard with our attorneys to allow the sharing of these links. I can't say to what degree or what capacity it's going to be in, but this by far is the single most powerful thing in finance, is if you can prove to somebody with a completely audited and third party, no affiliations to anything, service, doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. To the point where a lot of my clients on the RIA side of my main business caught wind of what I'm doing here, and they're like, "Hey, Steve, I want to get that variable. I've had to fight them off, right? It's not ready yet. So give me another day." So that's just my, if you guys have any questions specifically on analysis, what you want to look for, how to find the currency pairs, that the particular piece, in this case, it's just 3 pairs that we're analyzing here, 3 that it's trading, but on different variations of variable. This is the live account that some folks in our group are running here. They're running only 2 currency pairs with that. I personally haven't seen all of the analysis, which I'm taking a look at this weekend, for at least variable. I'm going to start there as to why those currency pairs were chosen. But I can almost promise you these guys are going to have a heck of a lot more insight to bring to the table in their weekly calls than I will initially. So I would default to making sure you guys watch those calls. All right, so how do you set up the software Einstein so it can be able to leave the market on Wednesday? Annalie, have you seen the setup videos for Einstein? Because this is a question that tells me that I don't know that somebody's directed you to the setup video for this. So if not, go into the back office, choose your product, in this case Einstein, and go watch the onboarding videos, because it's completely detailed in there. And that will completely answer that question. Way better than I will taking cracks at it. Oh, so you've seen the videos and you're still right here. Let me log in. So if you have Einstein, you have the default settings, or you've switched it to our conservative settings, which is what we recommend you do during these rocky periods of time. I'm going to get into the MT4 platform here, guys. Bear with me 1 second. So what I'm doing is logging into the VPS. Just different ways to get into the VPS. So here is the dashboard. And I know I get a lot of questions about this, but I really would have this stuff memorized, you guys. This is just a generic for show back office, but you can click on the product that you're running, in this case Einstein, right? It brings up of all the getting started videos, which cover all of that as far as the getting started and so forth. So let me just switch that out. Logging in. Let me go into the VPS the other way. Look at that, third time's a charm. All right, can you guys see the MT4 platform here? Let's make sure I'm sharing the right screen. All right, MT4. So open up the settings window here. Okay. I don't know if you can see these settings here. But see how it says closeout trail day? That's what you would switch off if you wanted to turn off on Wednesday, especially if you're trailing equity. So let's read the question again. How do you set up the software Einstein so it could be able to leave the market on Wednesday? So that would be if you're a trailing equity type. We've set up our software to stop trading Wednesday, but is not able to leave the market. We've set up our software to stop trading on Wednesday, but it's not able to leave the market, and we are often getting stuck in the market over the. So if you have trailing equity and you are down on some trades, it's not going to leave the market for that. Obviously, it's going to leave whatever versions of that sequence are still on, maybe that are in drawdown. But if you actually have trailing equity set and you're not in drawdown in the account, you hit your weekly goal, it should stop trading on whatever day you set. In this case, it's Friday, but you can just double click on it and switch it to Wednesday if you want. Not sure if that's solving your problem or not. If you think it's something that's related to the platform itself, you can always do just a full restart of the computer and or go into the back office and open up a Zendesk ticket and they'll take a look at it. Judson, we don't get into exotic pairs. It's the Wild West in that area. I just don't do it. Call me a wimp. That's fine. So if you have a fixed weekly goal, let's switch it to fixed weekly goal. All right, so if you have a fixed weekly goal, you can select, why is it not setting? Looks like some of these settings have actually gotten changed around on me. I'll have to look into that. Do me a favor if you could, please. I'm going to put my email in the chat window. I want you to send me an email. I want to see your settings, and I want to see the MyFX book if you've hooked it up to the account, please. That way I can just decide if there's any problems going on with what it is. So a lot of times we'll have to go into account history, download all history, see what's going on as far as why things aren't getting turned off. A lot of times the reset of the MT4 platform will fix some of this. By the way, for the question I just got on the This is, I don't know if you guys saw what I just did, but you right click on the currency. Here, let me just close this out and I'll show you. You right click on the currency, you go to specification. This is where you can see if there's any games being played by your broker. This ideally, this column should be 0 to 1, possibly 2. If you see this around 20 or 15 or 30, it means there's other stuff going on that's gaming against your EA that you have installed, regardless of what the EA is, right? This is just a sort of a peer into things going on by the broker. Could be other high frequency systems they have. So essentially, when you're choosing a Forex broker, you always want to choose what's called an STP broker. It's a straight through processor. Essentially, it's an ECN type network. It's just an electronic communications network. It just shoots it right through to the broker for execution. We've gone into some brokers that we just don't know who they are. There's a bazillion of them on this planet in Forex, probably because of that wild westness of B booking. So I'll talk a little about this in my video. Let's get into the last of the questions here. Jeanette, great question. Here's the problem with the drawdown calculator, folks. I've gotten a lot of emails on this, like, why can't you give it to us? Here's why. Because you can go into the drawdown calculator and you can make profit projections. So from the standpoint of a regulator, right? Some big dog at FINRA or the SEC or the Commodity Futures Trading Commission or the National Futures Association, right? These are all our regulators, right? Or even the FTC for that matter, Federal Trade Commission. And they can look at this and say, these guys are proposing performance. And they have no way to substantiate any of the changes in the spreadsheet. So what I would do is ask some of the biggest directors in your upline. Remember, there's only about 5 or 6 guys in this whole company that sit at the top. You know, Tyler's one of them, Ryan, Derek and Cam at the top. Ask these guys directly for what spreadsheets they use. Okay. And, certainly if it's, for you guys over in Europe, Dom and some of the other guys that can get you that spreadsheet. I think the name of the other global directors, but it'll come to me. If you can't see my email address, you probably should open up the chat window. Do you know how to do that? Open up the chat window. All right, let's see. Next question. Okay, so I'm actually going to post this. The problem with the Q&A is I can't post. So let me just read this, guys. Just write it down. So Nick was nice enough to give us on the call on the 13th, and the developer said they will do calls. Variables call with Dasan will be on Saturdays at 11 a.m. I'm not sure. I'm assuming this is all Eastern time. Yeah. So Saturdays at 11 a.m. Essentially right after my call, right? Which is actually kind of cool because I'll be able to hop right on it. No golfing for me. Stratomus is on Sunday at 11 a.m. Gearbox is Friday at 11 a.m. Neo is on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. These are all Eastern time zone stuff. So unless that changes, that is the list. All right, so I'm going to do you one better here. Are you looking at my screen? Yeah, that didn't work, did it? Let's just type it in directly. SVETTOREL. I think spell my name right. AUVORIA, prime.com. So there is my email address. Please send me complete sentences and thoughts. I occasionally get emails that just stuff that drives me nuts. Don't hate me. My mom was an English major. She probably could have been a writer. She always wanted me to finish complete thoughts and sentences that were well punctuated. So it's always been a stickler of mine. But that's my email address, AuvoriaPrime.com. If you want to send me a link to your FX book or a screenshot of your settings. check them out. But there's the contract specs window to help understand where the broker is. The challenge with videos is our broker isn't the same and stalls us. And I probably would find a new broker. By the way, thanks for that, Nick. Questions on anything? Let's take a quick peek out of this and into the fun stuff. So this is the live account that was set up with just a little bit under 4 Gs and some profits taken out of the account. It's up 62%. Drawdown has been 18. On the next one, this is the conservative Einstein account that we are running with 25-ish K in it. See how well this is done, by the way, guys, through a lot of baloney. Yes, it's taken some drawdowns, but notice the drawdowns with Einstein, the worst has been 10.73%. See that? Pretty darn good, isn't it? Now, because of the fact has such conservative settings, it just hasn't taken a lot of trades. Okay. So if you look at the performance it doesn't look quite as sexy as the other stuff, but the drawdown's been low. So you can see why this would apply and be very applicable to accounts that had 50, 100 to 500 Gs in them. Okay. Running Einstein. Win rates. Where are we? Notice these win rates here. These are the conservative settings. There's been $5,100 in euros taken out of this account. So we are profiting from Einstein. I love it. So this is a good one. I haven't shown this in a while. I think it's probably important to see. It's actually in a little bit. It's taking some heat right now in drawdown, but have full faith of what's going on here. What else? Now, I notice I don't really get into a lot of these other tabs, guys, but maximum adverse excursion and maximum favorable excursion are just a statistical, what they call scattergram of analyses you can do on trades that have won. Obviously you want everything to be centralized or aggregated in the plus side of this where it's green. But, this has taken some big stops on some stuff. And arguably we wouldn't have even taken this had we had the stops up much higher. We'd have been in better shape in terms of where it is. So good stuff on the analysis front as far as drawdowns on this. Just goes to show if one has some patience, you can come out of drawdown, even though with a more, how should I put it, with the conservative settings, a more picky type of trade selection just takes longer to pull out of that type of drawdown. So, so just know that variables calls on Saturdays at 11 a.m. I assume that starts next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. Stratamus on next Sunday at 11 a.m. I don't know. Maybe the calls are happening today. If that's the case, somebody let me know, because I don't know that. I was waiting for us to get all fully launched rather than, dive in with the launch team and try and figure out how it's all working. I'd rather just sit back and let it all happen, and then be able to answer questions on that. But Variable Saturday 11 a.m., Stratamus Sunday 11 a.m., Gearbox Friday at 11 a.m., Neo on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, New York. All right. What else? I'll address. Yeah, I'll bring the currencies, more currency pairs than I noticed that. All right, guys. That's pretty much it. If you have any extra time, I would make sure that everybody in your up and down line, that just does not pay attention to these calls, kind of knows what's going on. I mean, this is a really big deal. It's probably the second or third biggest deal in the entire history of this company this week, with a phase 2 launch of a lot of stuff. Just make sure everybody that you just extend the olive branch to those that maybe haven't had the time to watch this call or what have you, because it really will help the team as a whole collectively, sort of come together as that community thing, right? And other than that, yeah, all calls are going to be recorded. Yes, for all. Actually, I think all of our stuff is all recorded. All coaches' calls, all the corporate calls, everything is all going to be recorded and posted in the back office. So do make sure that at a bare minimum, in my opinion, if you're running 2 pieces of software, you should probably be on all 4 of those calls each week, or at the very least, listen to the recordings fairly quickly after the recordings hit. Again, it's all risk management, right? You're plugged in, maybe putting 2 or 3 hours a week into going into that. My Tuesday calls are typically aren't as involved as the Saturdays, but we've had a lot of stuff to cover, so I figured I'd be sitting on the mic here for at least an hour. But yeah. All right, everybody, have a great week. Let your heart not be troubled. Vetteral's off the mic. Have a stupendous trading week, and may the trades be with you.